I recently had an email exchange with a reader who, in his words, claimed to struggle with a lack of commitment. He wanted to study machine learning, but he couldn't get past the first few modules of the course. Now, after a few emails back and forth, however, I discovered that the reason why he wasn't able to commit was simply that his full-time job and family responsibilities kept getting in the way. I don't think this reader's problem was a lack of commitment. When genuinely more important things interfere with side projects, procrastinating on the side project is the correct thing to do. His problem wasn't a lack of commitment, but a failure of logistics, a difficulty with organizing whatever leftover time was available to make some progress on his goal. Now, there's a myth in self-improvement circles that everyone ought to be able to achieve any goal, and that any failure to do so is simply a lack of willpower, motivation, or commitment. This not only is profoundly untrue, but the mindset it generates leads to an impasse that makes it impossible to make real progress. Maintenance and aspirations. The best way to achieve a goal is to expend overwhelming effort in doing the task. Do 10 times as much as you think you need to. For ambitious goals in which few people typically succeed, this may be the only thing that raises the probability of success. But not all goals are like this. Many are more like the reader's desire to study machine learning. There's nothing overwhelmingly difficult about it, but it is time-consuming, and it probably falls in the bottom 10 of his overall life priorities. One solution to this problem is simply to accept the priority is low and give up any expectations for achieving it. I think this is sometimes wise. I have dozens of learning projects that I don't work on at all simply because they take away too much time from what I consider to be more important. Procrastination on low priority items is not a vice. But my reader's situation was a little different. The project he had in mind genuinely was his big aspirational goal. It was just being preempted all the time by all the mundane things he had to do to keep his life from falling apart. So in my course Make It Happen, I discuss an important distinction between maintenance activities and aspirational goals. Maintenance activities are those things that you need to do just to keep your life functioning. Washing dishes, doing your job, spending time with your friends and family, paying your taxes, and so on. You need to wash dishes, but there's no aim to be the world's best dishwasher or achieve new levels of cutlery cleanliness. Aspirational goals are those things that you want to improve or achieve that otherwise transcend the status quo. Staying relatively in shape is a maintenance goal. Running a marathon when you don't jog regularly is an aspirational goal. Achieving goals is a kind of optimization problem, where the maintenance activities form the constraints on your life, and the aspirational goals are those things that you're trying to optimize with what energy and time is left over. Of course, this distinction is not a rigid one. Keeping a good relationship with my wife might be a maintenance activity by this definition, but if I only did the bare minimum, I'm hardly an excellent husband. Similarly, you might have a goal of getting in shape, which is an aspirational goal, but the mechanism for achieving it is a hard rule about jogging every day, in which case it's more like a fixed constraint on your time. Still, I think this kind of distinction is useful since maintenance activities tend to be sustained more by our routines and habits, whereas aspirational goals, by their nature, require conscious planning, problem solving, and effort, and thus they tend to be more deliberate, making progress on low priority projects. So what should my reader do to make progress on his aspirational studying goal, or at least stop feeling so guilty about procrastinating on it? I think doing a complete inventory of your maintenance activities is an essential first step. What things do you have to do in order to keep your life on track? Note, this should only include things that you actually do, not things that you think you should do. If it's not currently a habit, it's an aspirational goal, not a maintenance activity. Next, I think you need to prioritize your outstanding aspirational goals. It's easy to claim you have time when you look at your goals in isolation and then chastise yourself for not pursuing them, but unless you're actually listing them all out and deciding what matters most, that's just a recipe for feeling guilty about what you're spending your time on. Priorities don't need to be unchanging. It's fine to prioritize programming for this month and then prioritize getting in shape for the next. The problem is when you try to prioritize both concurrently and then you achieve neither and beat yourself up about it. Once you've done this exercise, you've gotten a reasonably good picture of what you can accomplish. If you realize you only have 30 minutes a day after all your maintenance activities, your ambitions should be scaled back to match that fact. That might be enough time to pick up a new hobby, for instance, but it's probably not enough time to launch a startup or self-study a degree on a typical time frame. Being okay with procrastinating on low priority goals. Having a lot of maintenance activities is normal. It means there are things in your life that are valuable to you that you don't want to lose. It would be perverse to argue that a person who can't launch a startup right now because they have a career and family that they want to maintain somehow exhibits a defect in commitment. In some ways, maintenance activities tend to grow as you become more successful. While there are some cases where success leads to shedding responsibilities, I'd say the more typical case is the opposite. Nobel Prize winners, for instance, are lauded, but they also tend to have less time for original research as the acclaim comes with press attention and honorary appointments. While it's true that a person who is willing to sacrifice a lot of the value sustained by their maintenance activities will have more capacity left over for aspirational goals, that's an issue of prioritization, not laziness. Thomas Edison was the most prolific inventor in history, but he was also an inattentive husband and father. Choosing differently than he did is not a character flaw. The art of productivity is not throwing out all of your existing commitments in the fanatical pursuit of a big ambition. Instead, it's making choices about what matters and trying to organize your time and energy to reach it. Don't let yourself feel guilty if those choices cause you to procrastinate on something that genuinely matters less.